born that way with a very equal balance. But I always had a hard time navigating that harmony because from a very young age, I received this reflection from the environments around me in Western culture that to feel, to be too sensitive, to cry, to share emotions was wrong, was bad, was emasculating. And I'm very happy to see so many men now, young and old, who are pushing back against that and are doing the work to really invite their feminine into their life. And with that work, because they're complementary, to witness how a reactivation of our feminine aspects always engenders a reactivation of the masculine. And the last thing I'll just share is that in the archetypal psychological work that I do, because part of my journey healing my own psyche has been then sharing with others and starting men's circles in Toronto. And I started this course called Heroic Consciousness, which takes men through the four masculine archetypes of king, warrior, magician, lover. And in that material, there's this very interesting point where they talk about how the feminine is always engendering of the masculine. It always generates the masculine. And a really good symbol of this is from the King Arthur story of the Lady of the Lake. I don't know if people remember, but King Arthur lost his mighty sword Excalibur, which was like the sign of the phallus. And he lost it. There's very different legends, but it's sort of like he was acting in an immoral way as a warrior king. He lost the sword, and he had to go through a certain initiation to integrate his more feminine, caring, loving aspects. And when that happened, he found himself at this like very enchanting fairy lake. And this fairy queen basically lifted up Excalibur from the subconscious depths, the feminine, and gave him the sword back by saying, you now can use all your might, your aggressive male energy, fused with the feminine for rightness, for love. And thus you can now wield this masculine power. And you see that a lot in ancient cultures, the feminine sort of anointing the masculine, which I think is a very interesting pattern.
It's almost like to have all the masculine traits of like this action and order without some sort of feminine intuition behind it, it can very easily lead you astray or make you think you've been led astray. As you said, like it was hidden in his subconscious mind as though he never actually lost the sword, but he was sort of blinded by this fog that he'd forgotten how to tap back in, how to tap back into his feminine energy to actually use his masculine traits. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you make a very good point. I mean, it's like when the masculine and the feminine aren't conjoined, we enter into very chaotic scenarios. And I will just say presently with the rollout of AI and a lot of technology in our culture, you're seeing kind of this logical, rational mindedness without femininity, without caringness, sort of controlling the biology of human beings. And it's great to see a lot of people are seeing that and they're witnessing like, hey, our technology is very misogynistic, it's very patriarchal, and we need to check it. We need to really check it before it's too late because things are getting really intense right now with the rollout of these kind of techno tyranny paradigms.
It's almost like thinking too presently, where it's like just needing that immediate gratification to satisfy the urgency of now without thinking of, the lessons from our past or how we actually want the future to be. It's like so tunnel vision.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. But one thing I actually, I feel as though it's easy to look at someone and be like, wow, you really embody this so well. And like, were you always this way? Or how much of it was from your mother? Or were you like always sort of the black sheep in your family? Or like, how did your parents sort of really influence you to become this fully expressive man embodying your emotions so strongly? Like, sort of, what's your story there?
Well, I wouldn't, I mean, my mother was an incredibly artistic individual and she enthused my artistry and the music and the writing that I do, which I feel very grateful for. My father was Catholic and South African, so he was coming from more of that rigid patriarchal way of life, and he was projecting a lot of that onto me. And so I did become a sort of a black sheep, I think, in his eyes. But we had this beautiful journey that when I became a more fully embodied human through the initiations of adulthood, I could see that my own growth was actually giving him space to be more sensitive. And that was, before he passed, we had some of the most beautiful sharings ever. And I could really, and he actually had said so much. And that was like, wow, such a amazing feeling of healing and resolution to feel that you can affect your father in that way. Um, but I will credit a lot of, my own work in terms of at least becoming emotionally expressed and all of that is, and I'm sure a lot of the other men can share about this, is like spiritual practice, really. Because when you study spirituality, I mean, I look at spirit as like another name for like the unified energy that is everything, that's omnipotent and mysterious. And if it's a united energy, nothing is allowed to be blocked. You have to express, you have to really be, you have to look at those areas in your life where there's stagnation and use these practices, whether it's breath work, movement, yoga, all these things are trying to enthuse your energy to flow and to be more unified. So I really credit, my path of spirituality really began with yoga and meditation, which was quite ascetic. When you study the Indian yogic traditions, you can see the patriarchy there as well.
Oh,
But it was nice to enter into healthy discipline. But then ecstatic dance and particularly my training in shaking medicine, which really helped me to become a very uninhibited, wholly fool individual where I could just be myself completely without any fear of mistake. And then my path of music, which delved right into like that shamanic current of like free improvised channeling. That was really, to me, probably the essential practice for my expression, because when I make music, I don't necessarily rehearse. I just allow it to be. And I had to really learn over the years how to be surrendered in that moment. Because when you're performing in front of a bunch of people and you're in an improvised space, you have to be able to surrender because you may make a mistake, or sound or make a wrong note. And I had to learn to really just dance and jive with that. So yeah, ultimately music has been the most healing journey in terms of that. And of course, I think anyone who's a musician can also relate because you have to, music is this great way to just take your emotions and use them as a paintbrush to create an atmosphere and an inspiration in others and really help others to feel. I really learned that very early on when I became a sound healer and started doing these sound journeys, and that it was my job to feel so powerfully through my music and my songs that other people who maybe had a hard time feeling could feel with me and feel inspired to feel their feeling.
when you think of frequencies, is there one that sort of very much resonates with the divine masculine and one that resonates with the divine feminine in terms of nature?
Yeah, I mean, when I teach the warrior archetype to men, I often get them to make a lion's roar sound, because when you make a loud lion's roar, it just brings all that yang energy online very quickly. And then when I sing, I love singing in my falsetto. I love like getting really high up there. And when I get into my falsetto, it's such an automatic feeling of tenderness, of preciousness, of feeling my divine child. And yeah, so that's another really cool way to just like sing in your high pitch, and feel what that does to your body.
Um, Yeah, the other day we were taking a car ride and I'm like, Emil, roar. And he's like, no, what? Like, I don't regularly roar. Like, it took us, and each one of us in the car, like, did it. But there was kind of this moment where we were building up to, like, okay, because you don't just want to be like, roar. Like, you want to roar. Like, you want to channel it. And feeling that
Okay.
vibration come so low, like, right from the Manipura chakra. It's like, whew. And then yeah, to feel the falsetto of like being so light and this almost purpley blue light that you sing from up here with the feminine. It's hard to sing for sure though. That's the thing. The throat chakra is very much blocked in our society. Being able to express our divinity of energies. It's not something that's taught.
Yeah, I just give someone a bunch of cacao, put on some crazy drumming music, and shake and yell and scream for about half an hour. That's what we do on my trainings, and people are just fully activated after that. But you're right, it's totally blocked, but it's not so hard to unblock.
Yeah, it's not so hard to unblock. Well, thank you for sharing your insight on vibration and music and language. Darren, you're such an incredible sound healer. I've been to your sessions and they move you, they bring stuff up. I've been to so many things where I'm like, I don't have anything to let go of. I'm just going to be here and enjoy. And by the end of it, I'm like screaming and crying. And it's such a reminder that there's always more to let go of. And it's the
Yeah.
moments where you're like, I can't possibly have anything left to let go of. Like, I'm definitely done. And all of a sudden you're like, like again,
That's
always.
true.
It's never
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah.
Um, well, that brings me to Zark. He's having a little bit of problems on the Zoom. Are you there? Where'd you go?
Yeah, I am here. Just not sure if you can hear me clearly or not.
We can hear you. If you come to audio, that's fine also.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
so you're at Tomorrow Today right now, yeah?
I am, yeah. So I'm up in the Kawartha Lake region, and there's only one part of the entire campground that has Wi-Fi, and that's where I am, and it's not very stable. So I apologize if I get choppy on all of you.
No, it's fine. I'm so happy that you
Okay,
could join
perfect.
us. You
Yes,
gave,
happy to be here. Thank you.
yeah, you gave such great insight on the last talk where we spoke about using fear and like using
Mm,
fear to channel and overcome and like dive into your passion of life. And everything that you've been sharing month by month, I just feel like I resonate more and more. And the tip you're on about, speaking up and standing for what you really believe in. I know your background, and I don't want to be repetitive, but that I find your story really fascinating of where you came from and how has tapping into maybe a more feminine energy, if that resonates with you, helped guide your journey into your career choices.
sure. Yeah. So, for 25 years, I was in entertainment, nightlife, and the restaurant industry, and I was fully in my masculine energy,
Damn it.
me successful.
You're cutting out. Sorry, Zark, you're cutting out. I can imagine the words, but I don't think they
Yeah,
can.
maybe tell them to go off video. Sometimes it's helpful just to go audio.
Yeah, can you just go audio? Go audio.
Okay, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, bear with us. Zoom is strange. Oh,
Okay, I'm back.
you're back. Okay.
Okay, somebody said, so Matt said that I can dial in and send to audio through internet. Um, yeah, I could try that also if I get it on through my phone.
You sound clear now. This is
Hmm.
great.
Okay, so I'll keep it. Okay, so as I was saying, my masculine energy served me well during my career in entertainment and nightlife. I was able to produce and create and really manifest so many things as an entrepreneur. However, that masculine energy was also one of my biggest blockages for me really discovering my true self and allowing me to detach from the identity that I hated and recreate myself so that I could follow my true passion. And it's been this 5 year journey of leaving the nightlife and entertainment industry and learning about myself on a much deeper level. And that required me to adopt a lot of the feminine energy type qualities of being vulnerable, of really speaking from the heart with open communication, and really just allowing myself to love and accept myself for who I am, and just surrender to not having to control everything. And it's been in the last few years that I have really understood the difference between masculine and feminine energy. And lately in many conversations, I've said that the feminine not necessarily meaning that women are going to take over the world, but men, we need to tap into our feminine energy, and we need to talk about what is going on, the good, the bad, and the ugly, especially with all that's happening in today's world, with all this craziness that's going on. Males, especially successful, I myself, I was a lone wolf. I didn't want to ask anyone for help. I didn't tell anybody when, stuff in my world was going sideways. I always had to put on that front, like, I'm the man, I'm going to get it done. I'm a successful guy. And really, that's what's causing a lot of the pain and suffering with many of the men now. Like, a lot of the clients I deal with, they're dealing with depression, anxiety, and some are even suicidal because this role of who they think they need to be in society, this powerful, driven man who provides, who, if he talks about, his pain, his suffering, his weakness, like Darren had mentioned, for those, like, we're conditioned to think that men aren't allowed to talk about their feelings, and men just got to push through it, and men don't cry and all that other bullshit. And the truth is, it's when we open up and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we're able to express and communicate what's really going on. That's when the healing begins, and that's when we're able to evolve to that next level of who we are going to be.
Well, that brings me to the thing I also wanted to clarify is, what is toxic masculinity? What is it when we're being masculine and, okay, yeah, what society says, go full throttle, like achieve, succeed, conquer. Where is that fine line where all of a sudden it's no longer being masculine, but it's being toxic? Because, well, the way I sort of think about it is toxic is a poison. And when you let the masculinity seep so far into you that there's no longer room for feminine to even exist, you've polluted the body and the energetic body with so much of one that there's now an imbalance. And in order, I think, to find that balance, there has to be a detox. There has to be some sort of profound shift in either your environment or your conversations or the foods you're even eating to help detoxify so that it can even be a welcoming environment to have feminine energy come in. And so my question for you is, what was your detox process like?
So for me, my shift really happened when I realized that I had a purpose to serve, and that my greatest gifts can be used to help others discover who they really are, what their purpose is, and help them rise up. I believe that a lot of that toxic energy is focused on greed, on achieving superficial success, on really fulfilling our outer purpose, as opposed to when we realize our true inner purpose and we're then able to focus and contribute to others, we're now then tapping into a different energy within us, because we're now not just for our own benefit, we're working for the greater good of humanity and those that we love. So for me, when I realized that the car I drove or the watch I wear meant nothing to what my true purpose was, and that I was fully surrendering to who I can be for other people, then it wasn't about my ego anymore. It was all about, how can I serve? How can I help? Who do I need to be stand up for others and to help them rise up? And it was really through finding my purpose and just being able to contribute. And I'm powerful and I'm significant in a more valuable, purposeful way, because my efforts and my energy are going towards helping others, as opposed to just having a bunch of businesses, making a lot of money, having a bunch of fancy shit. Like, yeah, you may appear to be powerful or successful, but that's in a real superficial, shallow way. And it was through finding my purpose and the commitment I have to helping others that helped me realize that I can use my masculine energy and my ability to create in a really beautiful, purposeful way, as opposed to just for my own selfish intent.
Yeah, I actually just made a post today as I was sort of recognizing how much you really do need to harness your masculinity to, show up confident and show up with such groundedness that people trust you to lead them. and realizing that you don't need to have the eyes of millions and maybe just a glance, but instead to really have the attention of just a few who are willing and like, you know, really making the effort to be around you, to hear your teachings, and to not use your power of when you are in the light to educate, to still tap into that intuition of not just what you think they need to hear, but also what they need to hear, you know, not that's the balance I'm trying to find within the masculine and the feminine is, you know, how much is it of my ego needing to be satisfied to show up in a certain way, and how much is it genuinely trying to serve the people in front of me, and that their needs may not be the things that I'm trying to provide, and being able to detach and like show people the way and have more intimate, meaningful relationships on a smaller scale that's really going to influence my community, as opposed to like on a very vague, shallow scale where you're not maybe actually making those huge shifts in people's lives that they're going to go to their community and do the same thing that you've just done for them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have a practice that you do that, you know, Darren, he says these things in falsetto. Do you have a practice that you use to like really help you connect, like cry, or like, do you have anything like that?
So I'm actually in that process right now. You know, to be completely honest, I'm in a place where I'm working on opening my heart chakra. I'm I'm in the process of learning more about how to disarm myself from all the protection that over the years from, you know, from my childhood, from early relationships. Like I'm on the journey of opening my heart and learning to fully love. And you know, as much as I'm a teacher and share what I've learned, I'm also a student, and you know, love learning from all of you as to, you know, how to open up, how to release, because tapping into the depths of my emotions is something that I'm in definitely in process of learning and wanting to dive. It's, you know, for 40 and operate the world in a certain way, and that's all now coming apart. So maybe I'll have to try Darren's modality of singing in falsetto and trying some other techniques, because it's something that I'm still working on. I mean, my own daily practice is meditation, journaling. You know, I also live in Costa Rica most of the year, so spending time on the beach as well, just being in nature, just really getting connected to myself and being present with my emotions and thoughts is really important. And you know, I'm in a new relationship now, and I'm just very present to the feelings that come up, and then also listening to the thoughts that try to guide my feelings, and quiet those thoughts and surrender to my emotions and just allow myself to really feel. That's something that I'm in the practice of doing now, and it's very new for me, and it's not easy. It is hard to really just surrender to your emotions and quiet the mind so you can truly feel without trying to add logic and reasoning to everything, but just to be really in your emotions. It's not easy. It's a beautiful journey.
And that, like, it's so amazing to hear that, not just from you, but because you say like you are in your 40s and you've decided that it's not just like, oh, this is just who I am and this is just how I'm going to be, that you recognize something that doesn't totally resonate and you're like, I want my heart to be more open, and I'm going to consciously start making decisions, not like it has to be a huge thing where you go on a retreat, but in the simplicity of the conversations you have, to just be more in tune with the emotion and not be so rational in the mind. That is the perfect example of vulnerability with courage, of balancing the masculine and the feminine. And dude, you should totally link up with Darren in Costa Rica, or even Nico. These
Yeah.
men have like such a great perspective on relationships with women and men, and like how to be that layer of vulnerable no matter what age you're in or what part of your journey you're in. Like the retreat I did with Nico, there's men from ages 60 to like 20, and it just goes to show that you're never too young or too old to start, and you're never too young or too old to like want to change, and that your personality isn't a fixed thing. You can change it. It just takes a tremendous amount of conscious awareness in those small things. You know, it's not going and sipping ayahuasca for a week. It's having conversations with the people around you day in, day out, noticing your internal dialogue and thinking, ooh, that's a little bit negative, or that's a little bit like narrow-minded, that's a little bit habitual thought pattern, and that's not the person I want to be. The person I want to be would think in this way. And that's so incredible that you're doing that work. Kudos, man.
Yeah, thank you. And to add to that, it's about leaning in deeper when it starts to feel uncomfortable, when it starts to feel, well, when you start to feel the fear, when you start to feel that you're coming up on some shadows that you don't want to go there, that's when you need to lean in even there. And I recently did a breathwork session. It's really focused on my childhood with my parents, and there was something that was coming up, that was bubbling up, that I was almost at. And it's a process, like you said. It's not just about doing a retreat, it's about doing work every day and pushing yourself, leaning in further even when it gets scary. And I'll definitely be seeing Darren soon. I was dancing to his music in Santa Teresa about 2 months ago at our friend Fern's house. So we're definitely connected to some of the same tribe. And if all goes well, October 17th, I'll be back in Nosara, and I'll be coming down there in Santa Teresa, Darren, for sure.
Word, brother. And if I could just add something, man, your share is so beautiful, and I look forward to dropping in with you deeper in the flesh here in the land of papaya.
Yeah.
But I wanted to share, man, an amazing book that is really amazing for emotional integration. Is called The Presence Process. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I actually did an ayahuasca retreat with Dr. Gabor Mate, and he recommended this book. Yeah, he recommended this book as our continuing work. It's a 10-week program that you're taken through that actually integrates breath work and affirmations and wisdom teachings, and it's very clear. It's a very pragmatic process, and I've done it 3 times now, and I just finished up the third time. And man, it is honestly the most next level thing. I think every human being should do it, but I just wanted to share it because you were speaking about it, about emotions and how to get to that next level of integration.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Definitely wrote that down and going to take a look. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.
The presence process.
The presence process. Yeah. Yeah, you should do it too, man. You guys should do it together as a couple. That'd be interesting.
For sure. My gosh, for sure. Yeah, for anyone that's joining here, and I know you came because you're definitely looking for a way to level up in some aspect of your life, whether it's personal relationships, business, or just, having a more comfortable mind to live within. It's going to sound repetitive, it's going to sound simple, but it's just the practice, Yoga, breathwork, meditation. Zark said this beautiful thing of it's when you get to that point of being uncomfortable and you lean a little deeper. And this is my go-to saying in every yoga class. Every yoga class, Emil's like, it hurts. I'm like, perfect, go deeper now. And it's that moment where you make that level of discomfort your new norm. That's growth. It's that actual moment. And you can feel it in a yoga asana practice. You can feel it in a breathwork practice. It doesn't have to be so flighty and fluffy of conversations and you're waiting for the next uncomfortable conversation to gauge your growth. You can do these practices, yoga, breathwork, meditation, so you can actually track how you're showing up each time you're challenged with discomfort. Do you lean in? Do you breathe harder? Do you hold longer? Or do you retreat back and say, no, not today? And so, we can have these spiritualpreneur talks all the time. Just if you wanted to log off now, yoga, meditate, breathwork, and let me know how that goes for about a year, and I'm sure you'll have a major shift in every area of your life. Thank you so much for sharing, Zark. That was super. It's really lovely to hear where you're at and what you're up to. I hope tomorrow today.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Emilius, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm great.
And just thanks to our live audience here. Thanks all for coming.
We have a little live audience back here.
Thank you all for coming.
Emil I met about a year ago, and I was super drawn to him because his practice was just deep. He came to my birthday and he guided us through this meditation where we were channeling light and energies. And I was just like, who is this guy? You know, like, where did he come from? What is his story? And then I realized he was 23. And I'm like, wow, you're only 23. And when I was 23, I was binge drinking my face off, doing lines in the bathroom at some club. And you're 23 and you're meditating like twice a day for an hour, eating all these holistic foods, like doing vibrational work with light. And I'm just like, how? Why? And then I realized his emotional intelligence was just up here. I'm not going to say it's all because of the spiritual practices, but I am going to say it's all because of the spiritual practices. Tell us about your journey with spirituality and how it's led you to have such a connection with your emotions.
Yeah, thanks for that intro.
You're welcome.
Good points that you touched on, good aspects of my avatar and this body I'm inhabiting and everything. Yeah, so I was going through a rough patch like all of us do. Mine kind of looked like dating this girl, living in her condo that her dad paid for, driving her dad's car, and just smoking a lot of cannabis and not really being honest with myself. But then I didn't know, and I was really focusing in on her father, because her father had completely cut off, as you said, like that, like the toxicity of so much masculine and so much success and superficial wealth. I was just in pain for their family and really just trying to crack at it. And obviously, was I accepted? No, I wasn't on a scholarship to Harvard at the time, and completely this artsy fartsy, like kind of free, long haired, like weirdo. Not so accepted. So I was actually working out like a Saturday night at the bar, but the barbell, and I was like just going through a time. I just did like a silly workout at the gym alone. No one was really there. I hit up the punching bag. I just had so much like rage inside of me, obviously because I was suppressing with cannabis, but at the time I wasn't exactly conscious of that. And so it would kind of come out as like whenever I would do this like boxing for cardio stuff. And this guy approached me, and it was like so silly now that I think about it, but also extremely like hilariously divine. It's like this bald guy, like beard. He had the Red Raksha mala on, the Eye of Horus, like Yukteshwar on his sleeve, like just coming out of like, anyway, he's wearing flip-flops and like shorts, and it's like winter time. And he just basically was like, yeah, like you're in pain, like what's going on, like you're sad, like let's talk. And I was like, okay. And basically went into his office, and he was just like, he just listed off like your mother, your father, you because this, your spouse's dad, why? And I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I'm a herbalist, let me herbalist you. And I said, you know what, shit, like you're pretty legit sounding, like I trust you, like I don't get any weird vibes. And so the real kicker into like the metaphysical and the spirituality for me was he had practiced this system and developed this technique of shote, which is using muscle testing, intuition, and reading of the eyes, the nose, the lips, the teeth, the tongue, and as they are roadmaps to the body with reflexology and things like this. Because at that time I was really honing into my health, because I had become aware that I don't look sexy with my clothes off, and I want to look sexy with my clothes off. But then there's this whole thing about bodybuilding culture that was like very unhealthy, and it was like a really twisted, egoic kind of beauty pageant for men that just happened to be sticking needles in their bums. And so I was kind of at that crossroads, which was great, because then I was like on the health vibe. And he told me so much about my life that I didn't share anything with him, and he was using, of course, the muscle testing and the intuition stuff. And I sort of just was like, okay, well, you know what, like, thank you for all these, you know, herbs and recommendations. Like, I will do this. But also, like, what the fuck's up with you? Like, how are you psychic? Like, I mean, this is pretty like new to me. And he was kind of just like, okay, like, don't get too nervous, but like, go do shrooms with your girlfriend at your cottage. And then, like, in 2 months, come to this meditation workshop. And in the workshop, we're going to basically teach you what to do when you die. And so I was like, okay. And so I basically had a moment on my dock. I just took a gram of mushrooms, like nothing crazy, and I am very positive to the depths of my being that I spoke to my grandfather who had passed. And so when this happened, I kind of asked, like, you know, I was just kind of like really like holistically, like, kind of like, what's the word? I was like holistically having a breakdown on the dock, like an emotional kind of like a, like, not like a freak out, but like anyway. So I was on the dock, like totally emo, totally just spoke to my grandpa, and I was like, okay, if this is it, like, give me a sign right now. And I look up at the sky, and this herring flies like right by me, and I just was like covered with this like euphoric kind of like Oregon energy, like this whoosh of euphoria. And then like the voice in my head was like, see, like, that's me. Like, don't worry, like, I'm fine. Like, go to the workshop so we can talk more. And I was like, no way.
You know what? That's something that I feel you are so in touch with your feminine in terms of listening to intuition and listening to signs of the universe. And I feel almost like in our relationship, I'm more masculine and you're more feminine, because whenever there's something, you're like, just ask source, you know, just close your eyes and just ask. I'm like, no, I need data and facts because I actually need to make a decision about something right now. And you're like, just trust, it's fine. And it like irks me because I'm like, it should be like me listening to my intuition, like it, but then it's like, oh, there's me making it gender. See how it's not that at all. Like the way you embody these energies and how you use it to like guide your life, you know, having that balance. And sometimes the balance can be in another person, you know, like having those conversations with someone that is more in tune to help you balance. Because like a lot of people call me dad, and like I carry this like very father-esque energy here in the house, and after meeting you, you really help bring in.
I'm the stepdad.
You're the stepdad, but you help bring in that feminine intuition that I find it's hard for me to connect to. It's hard not only as like a woman, but owning a business and trying to be a leader and feeling like I really do have to be grounded and earthed and logical and rational. And if I cry, it's like all of a sudden everyone else is crying. And so I really am aware of how to hold my energy because I feel how it affects my community. And it can go on for so long that sometimes you forget how to connect to your feminine. You forget the power of actually using intuition and emotion to make a lot of your business decisions. And yeah, it's been so nice to have you to like remind me of my intuitive power by, you know, witnessing your intuitive powers.
I love that.
Yeah.
And so just as I feel as though starting anything new, there is some sort of darkness you have to move through. It's like this unknown. Like if you're learning how to falsetto and like go from note to note chromatically, like there is some sort of like blind trust in a way that you just got to know that like everything's going to be okay. Like this is what I'm going for. And if I don't know right now, like I will know. Just as like Biggie Smalls said in that song, if you don't know, now you know. And that to me is like accepting the fact that like we don't know everything, and like we're going to be coming to like the things that we desire or like will know through our evolution. And so meditation in that workshop really shifted me because first I haven't really heard of meditation. I was very new to like anything like plant-based or meditation or mala or all these like terms and spiritual knickknacks and Palo Santo. I just wasn't there. And so it was really great in the workshop to be able to be blindfolded and then go to a state where like there was some sort of light, like there was like undeniably like, okay, sure, if you didn't see it clear as day, like a hallucination or some sort of DMT or some sort of dreamlike visual, like you could sense it or know that it was there too. And then with practicing moving the spirit that is housed in the pineal gland into the lower heart chakra sphere, which ironically happens to be the center of the universe, like the fella Hermes said, as above, so below. And like I never knew what that meant until I was in the meditation workshop, connecting with like my soul family, like meeting these people or these spirits that some I could hear, I could communicate with, some were at a different, like at a much higher frequency that I couldn't even pick up, but I would like feel in my body. I'd be like, hi, and like I would feel something in my collarbone or like communication. I'll be like, oh, like you're the collarbone spirit for now, until I get to like that stage where I'm gonna be able to like download and like meet your your vibration, your frequency to receive it. So that was fantastic, learning about like how we actually breathe life force, energy, chi, prana, shakti, and our breathing tube from above and below that meets into the center when we breathe, like with that intuition and intention to not just, I feel when people start out meditating, they're like on an application or they're just kind of breathing and sitting there. And as much as I am supporting sitting and contemplation, sometimes just breathing and sitting will, you know, maybe put you in a more chaotic state, like not such a meditative state. So these tools and techniques that I learned in the workshop made it very easy for me to get to this place of like gooey, yummy, like I'm there quicker. I feel like drugs. Like I feel very zen, like meditating. It's not like, oh my God, I gotta find time to meditate. It's like sometimes it was like, I don't know, it's just so good. It's like,
I'd actually like us all to try a little practice of connecting with our intuition. So if you all just want to close your eyes again for a moment, and I want you to take 5 deep, slow breaths. And when you're breathing, each exhale you take, just keep emptying the mind. Emptying the mind, releasing all the thoughts, and visualizing it becoming more and more empty, more spacious, neutral. And then I want you to ask a question, something that is relevant to your life right now. And the first feeling you get, the very first answer you think of, whether you think it's yourself, whether you think it's a sign, whatever it is, accept it and listen to it. Now, maybe you felt a little rush, maybe you don't trust it, so ask another question. Empty the mind, be open to receive. And whatever the answer is, accept it. Does anyone want to share their question?
I will.
Please.
So recently I met this woman and we hit it off really well, but I also feel it's the universe giving me a test. So my question was asking if she was my twin flame or if she was something that had to do with that. And lately I've been getting ringing in ears, and I've noticed that my left ear is yes or go, and my right one is stop or no. And I got no, but I have, it's a test though. Source is giving me a test, so that's my answer.
That's the best part. Yeah, you take the information, like this is the thing with these practices, with tarot cards, with astrology, you take it and then you ask, do I resonate?
Absolutely.
yeah, the intuition comes, and take it as you will, but at the end of the day, it's you as your human avatar that needs to live the life of it. So like, how do you actually want to play it out? And sometimes we are more habitually addicted to one narrative, and that's the way we are going to choose. So it's a
Yep.
practice. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Anyone else want to share their question? Yeah? Okay, we have someone here.
So why am I here? We didn't get your email and drove in an hour to be here, and the answer was to meet your new tribe. Thank you.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
That's awesome.
I don't know if you guys heard that. She asked why she was here because no one else is. You guys are clearly all on Zoom.
Yeah.
And she realized it was to meet her new tribe. That's the thing with oblong events. They're always like a little oblong-y, you know? It's never quite perfect. It's always a little weird. Does anyone else want to share? Totally groovy if not. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Amelia. You're such a beautiful insight into how to embody feminine, vulnerable, emotional, Shakti energy in a beautiful masculine avatar.
Oh, I thank you.
Yes, thank you. No biased opinion at all.
No.
That brings me to Johnny. Johnny Lowe, where'd you go? There you are. Hey.
What's up?
What's up? So when I first sent you questions, I totally did not consider your story at all and just made up my own. Maybe that's a little bit of toxic masculinity on my own part. You're like, hey, Sierra, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what internal family systems is, and I'd actually really like to speak about relationships and your experience in men's groups. And, you know, honestly, that's something I didn't know you were a part of. And I'd love to sort of hear how your experience has been and what you've learned about how to relate to men.
Yeah, so I can tell a bit of my backstory. 2014, I was still part of this networking group, like business networking group. And one of the men kept mentioning this Sterling Men's Group. You know, we have a fire night, guest night, like, you want to come, Johnny? And I thought it was just another networking event. So I wore a suit, came late, and I was confronted by 10 men standing around a fire. Not literally confronted, but I was just like, this is not a networking event, clearly. And so what's going on? But the first question that they asked me was, what is the biggest challenge you're facing in your life right now? And I'm like, wow, no one's ever asked that, let alone a stranger that I've never met before. And so I was one of, I think, 3 or 4 other guests that night, and there was 8 other men that were part of that team, the men's circle. And so I volunteered myself to go first. And what came up for me was, let's just go with the flow. I've never been open. I've never lowered my mask, which is something that we do in our men's circles. And I told them that I want to be closer with my family, because I grew up in a very traditional Asian family where my parents just, when they get into fights, when everything's good, it's good. But when they get into fights, they don't talk. They don't apologize. They don't, and even when they're not in fights, like, I never get acknowledgement from my parents. So I'm always like trying to chase that feeling of being acknowledged or being validated by my parents. And so that became very early in my life. Like, what I've been to stop them from fighting. When I feel the tension rising, I'm gonna blame it on myself. So a lot of that resentment built up over most of my life, and up until 20 still a thing. So 2016, I came to this fire night. I said, I want a better relationship with my family, and specifically with my brother, who's a year older. And after some inspecting, after some like deep questions and conversation, it came down to a commitment or an action. What is something you can do? If this is the relationship that you have currently and you have an idea of what you want it to look like, what is an action or commitment you can make in this circle tonight? And one of our men will hold you accountable to what you say. And I'm like, wow, this is new. Not only have I never been open to anyone within the first question, but now I'm getting accountability and integrity being introduced to me in a way I've never seen, like strangers holding me accountable to what I say. Well, I committed to calling my brother that night and just having a conversation with him about wanting to have a better relationship. And so the meeting ended at 11. I got home at 11:30, and I called my brother as soon as I got home. And so, you know, he was work the next day. I made a commitment, so I'm going to follow through. And all I had to say was, I want a better relationship with you. And thinking that I was 29 at the time. Yeah, 29. Can't do my math. 29. Yeah, I've never said that to my brother. I've never had anything endearing. I've never said I love you. I never said you're the best brother. It's the farthest from that. So for me to be able to say that after 29 years or 15 years of life, which is another story, that was like a huge step for me. And that was the first step in a long 4 year.
Come on, you're supposed to be better.
Sorry, 2014, 6 years. But yeah, it's like 6 years later, I'm still working on it, but it's a lot better. And the whole point of the story is that I joined the men's circle, I joined a men's team, and I still do it bi-weekly. I have buddy calls every week. And the biggest value that I got from that was having a support system of specifically men. Because I've always been able to talk, I've always been really good at talking to women about my emotions, about relationship advice. But to be able to talk to men, it brings a different type of energy to the conversation. And so learning how to lower my mask in a vulnerable way, and even giving empathy and compassion to other men who are lowering their masks, anywhere from the ages of 23 to all the way to like 80. One of the men on my team is 80. So having that mutual trust of being able to lower our mask, being vulnerable, each other, and then holding ourselves to a higher standard to be the men we always wanted to be. And that's touched every aspect of my life, from closer relationship with my brother to last week I talked to my dad, 2 weeks ago I talked to my dad for the first time after a big fight. So I mentioned before everyone was on the call that I'm back in my parents' house for the first time in like 7 years. So living with them has taken on a whole new context. So I see them fight, but I'm no longer that helpless child. So I actually had that first conversation with my dad 2 weeks ago, and it was so confronting. I was like ready to cry.
Wow.
But after like my whole life of never confronting him, I said, "Hey Dad, like what happened between you and Mom? Would you do something different?" That was like a huge conversation for me. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if not for all the work that I've been putting in for the past 6 years.
You know, the thing about your story that I really hear is the simplicity of the phrases you used of just saying, you know, I want a deeper relationship with your brother, and hey Dad, can we talk about it? It's like the power of our words, and we can get so in our head that we're not going to express correctly that we keep it bottled up. And sometimes as a female, we overexpress and we share so many things because we just get into this dialogue of like loving the sound of our own voice, and then you lose the context of what it actually is. And the thing that I love about, you know, just the simplicity of words and remembering how powerful it is, that sometimes we can be silent because we think, oh, it doesn't matter if I say sorry, it won't make a difference, or it doesn't matter if I say that person, like, I like their shoes, or I hope you have a great day, or, you know, it was my fault. Simple syllables put together can mean the world to the person on the receiving end. And to not think that we know the other person better, that we think we know how they're going to respond, we know how they're going to react, and so we don't even need for them to participate because you're already having the experience without them. You know, I think that's the thing about watching men dabble in this new sort of, I don't want to say trend, but seeing how many more men's groups there are and hearing the simplicity of how they're run, like just having someone be accountable, having someone share. Like, we have women's circles and we are pretty in depth with it sometimes. You know, we're doing data, mathematical equations of where the moon is for this manifestation. Are we burning it? Are we burying it? Where's it going here? And it's like, maybe we can just say what we want and it'll be received, you know? We can find that balance between the two dynamics of the masculine and the feminine, and just recognize that it's humanness again. It's just expressing your vibrations honestly and transparently, and giving the person on the other side the opportunity to respond how they want to respond without putting any of your projections on it of how you're anticipating. Because I feel even that can sway the other person. If you're asking something with your thoughts being like, oh, they're going to respond like this, can you ask a question and completely detach from it, and not just like by saying it like, hey, do you feel this way, but internally let yourself detach so that you can receive a genuine response from a human that's not responding because they're responding to Sierra, or they're not responding in a certain way because they're responding to Emil. They're responding exactly how they're responding, so that you're both having genuine relationships as the humans you are individually, and not as you are always in this relationship dynamic. That's how you break those habitual patterns in your family. Because it can be hard. Those are hard conversations to have with your brother, and especially your parents, to be like, yo, let's argue different. Let's find agreements different, you know? Let's actually have deeper relationships. I've been your son for 30 years. I don't even know you, you know? Like, I want to know you. I want to be part of your life more. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so, like, within the men's circle, just being able to, it's like what Emil said, you don't know what if you don't know, now you know. And another way of saying that is you actually don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And these are what we call blind spots.
Yeah.
There's what you know what you know what you don't know, and there's you don't know what you don't know.
Ah. All right.
And
I know.
the thing is completely unconscious levels deeper. So there's things that you're completely unconscious of, but they affect you. And those things that you're unconscious of are things that are inside you. You can call them traumas, you can call them blind spots. But whatever it is, it's a part of who you are, and it drives the way you behave. And so we fall into these patterns of behavior that we don't realize are happening. And then they might be the driving force behind why we have addictions. Actually, it's a lot of the reason why we have addictions. So like what Emil said about smoking up to mask the fact that he had this rage inside. That's an example of a blind spot that he didn't know about. And so in the men's circles that I'm in, it's all about being able to point out each other's blind spots, or to identify them within ourselves through a mechanism that we call an inspection. So an inspection is holding up the mirror for each other. It's being able to create guidance in it and asking the right questions without giving advice, unsolicited advice, so that we're not believing our own bullshit. Because oftentimes, you'll ask someone, the most comes up is late for the meeting. It's like, oh, the meeting was happening now. Is there something else that's coming up for you? It's like, oh, I actually had a fight with my wife. Oh, okay. Why do you have a fight with your wife? Okay, it's because, I just don't like the way she does ABC. And then it ends up going full circle and pointing back at the own person's trauma. It's like, oh, it's actually because, I have this trauma from my relationship with my mom. It can go from a surface level all the way into a blind spot that you never saw that's been affecting you this whole time. And that only is possible with men that you trust, to be able to lower your mask and then hold up to the mirror to see who you're being, and then giving you the choice. Do I want to still be this person and be empowered to be that person? Or do I want to change? And if I want to change, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be dark. It's going to be challenging. But then I have my men here to support me through that process. And if I said, oh, I'm going to stop smoking, and then after 1 week, you started smoking again, the men are there to say, okay, do you have to do a consequence because you broke your commitment? Or did you lie because you actually love smoking? So again, it's like, it's okay to continue doing what you said you didn't want to do, but the idea is that you have to be clear. So some little insights into kind of what we do in our circles.
Patrick was just giving you a little bit of a shout out for being such an awesome part of the men's circle. And it's so amazing just to like know that there are men out there doing the work. Because I know sometimes, you know, as a woman, you're like, where are all the good men? Well, they're all right here on Zoom. Perfect. You guys should all get each other's numbers. Yeah. Man, thank you so much for sharing that. I really acknowledge your journey and like trying to have more clear communication with people closest to you. I know those are the hardest conversations to have. And, you know, I had a conversation with a guy the other day about, I was going through my own stuff with my family, and he said, you're here on earth because you're in soul school, and your family are your karmic lessons. And can you see them as gratitude before you even see them as a lesson? Can you already be thankful for the lessons they're about to teach you before you go through the trauma, before you get through it, and just be like, all right, you're here because I'm supposed to learn something juicy, and almost appreciate how difficult of the human they are because the universe thinks you're ready to handle that, and be like, damn, I must be at a really high level in my avatar game to be presented with you fine specimens, because they can be challenging as hell. And to just, you know, show up and to not give up on our families, to not turn our backs because they aren't our vibe and they aren't our cup of tea, and just find our soul tribes that they do resonate so easily with. You know, Hannah, she wrote this article called Spiritual Bypassing, and I try and look at my own behaviors a lot throughout the day. Okay, like, am I meditating just because I want to avoid being uncomfortable? Or am I meditating because I'm trying to make that growth? And when it comes to my family, you know, am I not calling them because I just don't want to be bored with that? Or am I ready to like level up and, you know, change my own behaviors so I can learn, you know, try new ways of thinking. It's really hard to think not like yourself. And it's sort of a fascinating concept to get into. I dabble in this sometimes in my brain, like, what would not Sierra do? Like, Sierra thinks this way, she has this sense of humor, she'd say this sarcastic remark, but what would a totally different human react in this situation? And all of a sudden you get to live life through a different lens, and all of a sudden you're exposed to different solutions to habitual problems you're having in your life. Super fascinating, interesting work. And it's all just by finding people to be the right reflections around you, to give those unbiased reflections and advice and hold you accountable and be like, yo, I don't know your family, I don't know what's up, but you said you're going to do this, so do it, because you made that promise to your future self.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Being willing to take unreasonable action.
Unreasonable action, yeah. Unreasonable action. I like that. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Awesome. You know, before I get to Nico, I'm going to bring Angela, our beautiful divine masculine here. I decided to add her randomly to the talk just because I see her as such a powerful force, and like, I really admire you when it comes to showing up with such confidence and building the brands you have and being so empowering for so many women that you have done so for. And you do it because, well, like, what caught my attention, what made me think of you is you channeled this character, you called him Chad, and you and Val, you'd have like this amazing balance of this divine feminine and divine masculine being represented in the female body. And there was something to the way in which you guys grew the business. You know, you were always like handy with the tools and doing like all these sort of manlier things, and yet you were so divinely feminine. And I'm really interested to hear about, you know, how you've used that to help you succeed in business, and how it's also been a challenge as a woman trying to, you know, be successful and show up with confidence and like have those more masculine traits and not let them be too toxic or toxic at all for you to succeed. Like, how has it been being you?
I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you for like including me in this manly panel, because I was like, when you asked me, I was like, what? You think I got some balls, girl? So yeah, thank you for having me. I have always been a bit more masculine growing up, so you know, the character Chad, he was created through TikTok, actually. Well, through the store first, because that was when I started wearing a mustache in public. And then he got yeah.
Before it was just like a private thing?
It's just like certain outfits required a mustache. Like when I'm wearing a nice suit, I'm like, I can't do this suit justice without a nice stash, you know? Like Nico's, like, look at him. It's beautiful. So anyway, and then Chad came about because people were asking if this character had a name, and I was like, you know, let's vote for a name. And then everybody voted, well, majority voted Chad, so he's Chad. But regarding utilizing my masculinity
Well, I
for my
guess
business,
my first question for you was, you laughed at it. I'm like, some might say you have BDE, and for those that don't, it's called big dick energy. And you know, I think that's kind of like a really funny term. And at first I thought it was a negative thing, but then someone shined a light on it that it's actually just like, you know, being confident with what you got and like showing up no matter what the size is or whatever. And you channel that very well. And I don't know, do you resonate with that, or how do you interpret that label?
I mean, I definitely resonate with it, because to me, big dick energy just essentially means, for me anyway, not someone that doesn't require validation from the outside source. And they're completely comfortable of who they are, and they're confident of what they bring to the table. And so I think that, yeah, I resonate with it, because I am who I am. And, you know, like some people, I accept all aspects of me. I'm learning as well. And yeah, I've had to learn at a very young age that I wasn't the most feminine girl. And being raised in a conservative Asian household, that was a bit challenging. But growing, now that I'm older, it's benefited me in my businesses, because I think how I structure my day, and how I think, and how I analyze problems, and how I solve problems, is definitely more masculine. And so I definitely think that there's a benefit to it, for sure.
Do you think, and this is just a question coming to me now, that when we get too much into that masculine mindset of, you know, needing to understand and have reason and rationality, when it comes to choosing our partners, we can get almost a little too finical, and we forget to trust like what lies underneath? Has that ever posed as a challenge for you?
For sure. In my younger days, for sure. I had a huge guard up, just based on previous experiences, and I definitely made a mistake of painting the next partner with the same brush. So I've definitely had to learn to get to know people, and as they are, as the spirit as they are, and as the human as they are. And I think a lot of the times I was raised to, you know, find this partner, this your ideal yin and yang, right? And I don't think that there is that. Like, I think that, you know, a partnership is two people coming together and putting in the work to making it work. Because I think that that's like something that people don't talk about, is that like relationships are work. So.
And, you know, I guess you and Johnny both grew up in maybe this conservative Asian household, which I'm very interested to see what that is like behind closed doors. Are the views very traditional in terms of like gender roles for male and female, with like your mom and dad?
Yes. Like my extreme, like stereotypical gender roles. Like my dad was the person that worked, my mom doesn't work. She does all the house chores, my dad touches nothing. Yeah, it's very Sorry, I'm reading the chat.
Yeah, same. I was also doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely the gender roles are serious in my household for sure.
I feel, sometimes when they are more serious, it's almost a blessing, you are able to distinguish it so much more clearly that you can either totally resonate and be like, I want to be that, or you're like, nope, don't want to be that. And you can make the decision almost like at a more like innocent age in terms of how you want your personality to flow. I don't know. Did you ever like look towards your mom and dad and be like, oh, that's something I definitely want? Or was it more like seeing your society and your community that helped you lean into this more masculine trait that helped you find your success?
I definitely looked at the relationship, my parents' relationship, and kind of questioned why. Because I had more of a masculine energy, I felt like, why do I need to do these things? Like, why is it a requirement? Why is it, if I do this, I'm not ladylike? Or, if I was to even laugh a little louder, and that's a thing. Like, growing up, I laughed too loud because it wasn't ladylike. And so I'm grateful for to be able to witness the relationship that my mom and dad had, because it made me question, and it made me want to find my path and my relationship. And like, yeah, it definitely gave me a lot of clarity in terms of what I would want.
That is such a real thing in terms of like not laughing loud. I remember I wasn't allowed to sneeze in public or like cough too loud. My grandma was like, that's not ladylike, you should go to the bathroom. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? But it's the same way for men, it's like, oh, they can maybe sneeze and cough and fart and like do all these other things at their leisure. But when it comes to emotional expression, not even like, crying tears of joy for a man, like to just express in the positive ways, to let everything be expressed, male or female. Like the stigma from the older generations is just, damn, they're really doing the best they can, but it just brings so much hope that there's these humans here surrounded, that we're now going to do the best that we can and inspire the children to fart and cough and laugh as loud as they want to, and it not be ladylike or butchy or whatever. It's just human, and to release, these are energies inside of us. Holding in a fart is the worst thing in the world.
It is, and it's terrible for you. So don't do it. But yeah, I definitely agree with that, is that we're all just human, and we all have both feminine and masculine energies within us. And sometimes it's just like we teeter-totter more to, one side and not the other. But I think we have the capability of controlling that scale. Like there's certain times where I do channel my femininity a little bit more based on the audience I'm speaking to, because I want them to feel comfortable. You know what I mean? Like I want to vibe on the same energy level as they are, as I'm engaging them. You know what I mean? So I think that we just need to learn how to navigate and how to control the scale, I guess.
Totally.
And also, just to jump in, like I think like labeling like man, woman, masculine, feminine are ways that we just like understand these energies, but these energies are just energies and they're genderless. It's just like, yeah. So
yeah,
that's why I wore a shirt named Human.
Yeah. I mean, in yoga, we call it hatha, the sun and the moon, and it's the combination of just like cyclical and daily, like universe and earth, like however yin yang you want to put it. It's really just needs to be relabeled. But yeah, I'm glad we're slowly defining this sort of understanding that, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's really just about owning what you need to own so that you can excel in that moment. Like Angela's saying, she changes her dialogue and her style of communication depending who she's talking to. And that's genius, you know? If you showed up the same while you're trying to make an impact, like you have to think about who it is you're trying to influence. And then it's not about changing your whole demeanor, but it's just about using the right language so people can resonate and still trying to, you know, be genuine and with integrity. It's just humanness, connection of humanness.
But it's even as simple as like body language too, right? Like I think, you know, yeah, like when you're like people read your body and your energy very easily. I think a lot easier than language. We just don't communicate it. Like we just can't feel it and then speak it. Like we don't know how. Like we have to learn to feel certain things. Like yeah, like I can't find the word.
Yeah.
That's super apparent and present with all these people wearing masks.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know how to smile with their eyes, or like you can't really hear them. It's just like
it's muted the emotion behind the human.
Yeah. I
Or
hate it
people
so
are being
much.
people are forced to show up more energetically now. They're forced to resonate with their vibration, and it's like it's weird because you're being detached in this other way, but now you're being more. It's like when you turn off all the lights, all of a sudden you can hear better. When you take away all the smiles, all of a sudden you're really noticing people's frequency and vibration when you're standing beside them in line.
Totally.
Created this whole new level of intuition as humans.
Yeah.
Super cool stuff.
Totally.
Love to hear you speak, but we are running out of time, and I really want to get to Nico. Thank you so much for sharing just your perspective on how to be a boss lady and to like show up with confidence and really own. You know, you've done so many amazing things. I read in your bio. I don't know how old you are, but you must be like 59 because you've done a amount of accomplishments by now. And like, kudos, girl. Kudos.
Thank you, baby.
Yeah. Nico. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Great, thank you.
Oh, such a little peaceful Buddha at the end of the talk. I love it. You know, you've been gone for the majority of this quarantine from Toronto. I know you just got back, and you know, I left you in Colombia in November, and I think you've been doing much more serious work since then. I know you went much deeper in your space holding and your connection with plant medicines and just, you know, self-discovery with you and your partner. I'd love for you to share sort of how you've learned to hold space, how it's been a journey of holding space for yourself, holding the container for your divine masculine and feminine to express, and holding that container for others. Yeah, if you want to share a little bit about your background also.
Sure, yeah. I will be very brief in sharing my story, but to sum it up, I grew up very sheltered, very shy and insecure in Colombia, and this led to a lot of feelings of insufficiency, a lack of self-respect in the process. And when I moved to Canada, I felt that the way to take care of that was to do what the media, what society kind of pushes men to do, which is fit into certain character, right? So, which for me, it looked like overcompensating, right? I went from being the shy kid to trying to be the bad guy, to being a jerk, an asshole, the stereotypical frat boy. That was a way, not very sustainable, but it was a way of me finding myself, claiming what I thought I was, right? But like everyone here, I'm assuming we all go through experiences that have us question who we are. For most people, that is heartbreak, that is the death of a loved one. It can be sickness, disease, but there is something that forces us to stop and take a look at what we're doing with our life. And in that process, I realized that I was living my life in a way that was not true. I was living my life and my expression of masculinity through a story that somebody else had written for me that did not align, did not feel well. So, long story short, I ended up putting a lot of work into that, and then working with a movement, with a company, doing dating and relationship coaching for men for the last 7 years, more or less. And that was a beautiful experience. I still work with them. But something that I started to see, and something that was talked about here, is the concept of the mirrors, right? I realized that most men that came to fix their issues with women, what they had was a lot deeper. It was deeper than not being confident enough to walk up to a woman. It was deeper than not having the self-respect to assert certain boundaries. It was deeper than just being a little bit disconnected. It was a genuine disconnection from within that was having outside effects. And working with hundreds of men, I realized that relationships are just one of the clearest or one of the strongest and most present mirrors for us. Right? There's a lot of things that we cannot look at until we're in the presence of another person, until we're either living in community or in partnership with someone, and where my desires clash with the other person. And then my fears start coming up, also my virtues. But into this journey, I realized that we're all in a spiritual quest, whether we are aware of it or not. And by spiritual quest, we're all seeking to experience ourselves as this expanding energy, always more and more and more, this infinite energy. Some people do it through money, fame, being always bigger or always richer. Some people chase this expansion through external means. And then eventually we realize that that is not enough. Then, like most people, I got to that point and I started chasing it through internal means. But there's still a chase, trying to be more spiritual, more grounded, more present, all these things, trying to do more and more and more and more practices. What I understood was that there are pains, there are things that get in the way of us being our true expression, and that includes masculine and feminine. For each of us in different percentages, in different quantities. But our natural expression, I realize, is not something to pursue or to chase. In the same way, you don't tell a rose, please be beautiful and smell good in the mornings, or you don't tell the birds to sing in the morning. It's what they do naturally as an expression of who they are. And I realized that it was the same for me and the same for us, that we pursue a lot of things without realizing that the work is actually taking everything that we have learned in our journey that gets in the way of the natural expression. Our role is not to, through a set of practices and affirmations and positivity, force flowers to bloom. Our job is actually to take the weeds out, to make a fertile soil for that to come up. And in the process, I realized that yes, we use relationships as a mirror to see what hurts within me or what is not quite aligned. He said this, so now I feel triggered. He said that, or he didn't do that, and then now I feel like I want to close off, like I want to distance. And I think the relational practice is a beautiful one because it makes us aware of these things. But at the end of the day, it's like me having a wound here or on my arm, and then hoping to find a mirror to see where it hurts. And most of the mirrors we find are a little bit stained, Like most of the people that we find in a relationship, they're carrying their own baggage. It's clouded. So using another person as a mirror, especially in relationships, can be beautiful, but it can be very confusing as well, because sometimes I don't know if what I'm seeing is a reflection of something within me or a projection of who that person is, right? Sometimes if I feel insecure because my partner is doing something, is it her being out of integrity, out of commitment? Is it me being insecure, jealous, worried, feeling unsafe? So I realized that the mirror is a beautiful thing. It's better than nothing. But if something hurts, why not look at it directly? Why not check my hand by myself? Why not pay attention to it without the reflection of something that might be a little bit cloudy and blurry? And what this led me towards the last few years was to dive deeper into my process, my internal process, through the traditions of ayahuasca with the native tribes in Colombia. And I started to understand many things. I think the main one is there's no, and we talk a lot about it, but there's no such a thing as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. Masculinity is not toxic by definition, and so is feminine energy. What we have is masculine needs and desires being taken care of in a way that is not sustainable. That's what people label as toxic masculinity, but it's not that the masculinity is toxic. It's that there are certain needs, certain ways in which the energy wants to move that are not taken care of in a way that works, right? Men want to feel a sense of direction and power and groundedness, and maybe they become tyrants in their relationships or with themselves. You know, they want to feel a sense of leadership, but then they force and they push, or we push ourselves through very rigid agendas, right? Women, or men and women, you know, we want to explore our feminine desires, which is to feel, to flow, to love, to feel nourished, to nourish. But we usually go about it in ways that are not sustainable. We go about it in ways that give us a glimpse into what it is we're trying to feel, but it's always slightly beyond reach. You know, the feminine is about emotion, about feelings, and we try to achieve it through overindulging sometimes, right? Sometimes, and it was my case, you know, I thought, oh, I'm disconnected from my feminine energy, so I did two things. First, I thought I need to take baths, I need to just move, I need to, you know, light candles and nice scents, and nothing wrong with that. But I will make kind of like a to-do list of things to nourish my feminine energy. But it was still things that were aimed towards feeling externally, and also they were aided by a masculine structure, right? Very often, you know, there were a rigid agenda of, okay, now I'm going to feel, right? And it didn't lead anywhere. What I started to realize was that there are healthy ways to address these urges, these desires, these needs. They need to have a direction, focus, the need for consciousness, which I think the masculine overall, its main concern is consciousness. While for the feminine is love, is not achieved through a to-do list or through a business plan. And for the feminine, it's not achieved through wine and candles and nice scents and just dancing. But ultimately, consciousness is achieved through going towards a state of presence. Ultimately, love is achieved first through acceptance. And when I segue into your question, which is how to hold space, and the number one thing that I tell people that I work with and other coaches is you can never take someone deeper than you have gone yourself. not your friends, not your clients, not anyone else. That would be like someone asking you, hey, how do I get to this place? And you don't have the map, you have walked just half the way. You cannot take them further. If you try, both of you are gonna get lost. You might end up there by chance, but you might end up somewhere completely different. So to hold space, the first thing is understanding how deep have I gone and how much do I know the road to that place? And is the person asking me to go, or is the group needing to go to a place that I feel comfortable leading towards? Or is it beyond my current capabilities? With that being said, okay, so to hold space, I need to be able to have gone deep within myself. How do I go deep within myself? And I think there's a very, very subtle thing that we skip in our process, and it's that I think someone just mentioned gratitude before like finding a lesson, and I think that's a beautiful way to express it, because most of the time, if I have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, if I'm in a relationship, or even if I'm by myself and just struggling with my own sense of direction or my own ability to feel, we usually jump into fixing mode, right? I say, oh, this is wrong, I don't like it, so now what can I do to get out of this place? I need to move, I need to take this course, I need to meditate, I need to, whatever. And we skip the first and the key and the most basic and fundamental ingredient of holding space for ourselves, which is acceptance. Very little, very, very few times do we allow ourselves to be right where we are. Very few times, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, the tendency that most of us have is, okay, what can I do to not feel overwhelmed? But we don't put the time into just sitting and accepting that right now I am Nico feeling overwhelmed. I don't shake hands with that part. I don't make room for me to also feel okay feeling that way. And it's like a canvas, if acceptance is the energy that cleanses and makes the canvas a clean slate, then whatever direction we take is what we paint on it. But usually we don't take that first step of just accepting and really sitting with and understanding where we're at, and we jump into fixing, into changing, into rearranging. And we may have the best intentions and the best practices, but we end up with a pretty painting on a dirty canvas, and eventually it just doesn't work. You just feel there's something off, and it's because we skipped that first step. I want to hold space for other people. I need to be okay just sitting in my own discomfort and accepting it. Way before I need to know the road through the mountain. I need to come to terms and really look around and see, where am I, right? Because I can have a lot of directions, a lot of intentions, but like a GPS, if you only put the destination but you don't have the starting point, it can't tell you how to get there. Especially if you lie about your starting point, or if you want it to be a little bit beyond what it is. If I'm feeling anxious, overwhelmed, and I pretend, I'm actually fine, I just need to do more yoga. The place where you're starting is okay, you're fine, you need to do more yoga, but you skip that first part of the trek. And holding space is becoming brutally honest and accepting of where we're at, because only from there we can start our journey. And once we have started it, then we can hold space for other people. The most difficult part of holding space is that we feel uncomfortable with what the other is going through, right? Like in the ceremonies that we participate in ayahuasca, sometimes a lot of really difficult things come up for people. People start screaming, crying. Some people, if they have a very rough experience, they can go into full temporary psychosis and It can be very scary for most people. But fear only happens when there's no clarity, when I don't know what to do, right? And overwhelm just happens when I feel the situation is too much for where I'm at, what I'm ready to deal with. And acceptance means that I feel completely fine if people are losing their minds, if people are crying, screaming, if they're getting violent. Like, I feel fine, I feel centered, and I don't feel scared about that. And that can only happen if I myself have learned to remain equanimous and present and accepting of each of those times where I'm not feeling great, or where I'm feeling overwhelmed, or where I'm feeling emotions that usually I tend to run away from, right? So that's what I will say, to hold space first, learning to accept all of us, especially the parts that we don't want to look at, because only then we feel very comfortable with accepting that part of another person before trying to fix, which is what happens a lot in our friendships, in the coaching and spiritual community. This happens a lot. Someone says, oh, I'm feeling bad, and the coach or the group leader feels uncomfortable sitting in the discomfort of the other person. So he or she tries to find a way through and out of it without dealing with what's happening, without just letting that be for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Wow, you've dropped some whiz bombs on us there. I feel like I knew it would be great for you to close this conversation. I love what you said about knowing where you are before you're deciding where your destination is. That's something I don't think I've actually personally thought about. I know where I want to go. I know exactly what I see for the future, but being brutally honest about where you actually are and what that roadmap is going to look like, that's a vulnerable conversation to have with yourself. And, Hannah had said before with holding space, and you saying, you can only take people as deep as you've went. And when we're holding space for each other, as a woman, sometimes we can be like, oh, he can't hold space for me. When we're being like super emotional, it's like, well, can you hold space for yourself? Like, are you even comfortable with the like range and volatility of which you're projecting onto others? Do you feel comfortable holding that? If not, how can you ever expect someone else to do the same if you're not willing to do that for your own? And also that, you said the percentages of masculine and feminine. Equal, balanced doesn't mean equal. When we talk about feminine and masculine energies, it's not 50-50. We're all different humans, and our percentages need to be at different numbers, if you want to think in that way, to be balanced, and to let the purpose of our journey just to be balanced, to be equanimous, to be able to have that level of groundedness within ourselves and to continuously hold space within us. And that is how that frequency carries out for you. I mean, I've seen the way you hold space for others, and you're so centered. I don't know if you're doing like the count to 10 before you answer a little trick, but it really unpeels the layers of people, and there's no real trick that you're doing. You're just holding the space with poise and, with love. And it's done so much for the people around, and I've really seen the work you've done. It's a great perspective you've shared. So, do you kind of have a roadmap for yourself? Like, where do you see yourself going in the next little bit?
I have a direct, strong intention and trust for the moment.
For the what?
For the moment. Yeah. Where do I see myself going? I think that's a long question to answer. But right now, my commitment and my efforts are placed in creating a bridge for people to get out of their own way in their relationships and in their life just in general. The bridge is unlearning. It's letting go. It's shedding away the skins of everything we've learned, especially the things we think we work. Especially the things that we think work. because those are the ones that bind us deepest. So we become attached to living life with a certain amount of practices and tools, and sometimes we're so obsessed with getting to the next place that we miss this moment, this place, this space, right? So that's where I'm at. I'm in the process of helping people shake hands with where they're at and get out of their own way.
I love that. Their answer is very Nico. I like that. I wanted to, okay, first of all, thank you everyone for sharing your short but very in-depth perspective on this huge topic of embodying your humanness. I wanted to open up the floor for anyone that has any questions for any of the panelists. If you want to pick their brain a little bit more. I know we're over time, but I don't know, we're all here, so.
Started late.
We started late. Well, let's not go by those rules. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please unmute yourself. Join the conversation. You're welcome, Patrick. You can talk and like also I don't have control over your mics. You can just unlock that throat chakra and just say the actual words if you feel, or you can type it, you know, at your own.
I wanted to say thank you for doing that because it's a much needed topic right now, and I think it's very important during these times, you know, with all this shit going around the world, the pandemic, and then all that masculinity stuff going on. I think a group of people coming together like us to help be that beacon of light for people that don't have direction or need just that, like that searchlight. They need to be guided. They need to be guided by people like us. And I just really appreciate all of you for holding this event. So thank you. I wanted to say that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I know these talks, they may not seem like there's a lot we're doing in this moment, but sometimes I feel we just need to be exposed and have a little bit of hope that you're not the only one on this journey. And there are people all over the world that have the same incentive and, you know, desire to really make a change and have these conversations. And every one of these guys, Angela, they are all doing coaching and they're open to share their journey and teach. So if you feel like you want to learn more, like, I would say these are the people to reach out to. There's really amazing things happening on the sidelines. You know, I actually made a post today about how it can be so overwhelming when you look at all the chaos in the world. But when I remember that it's all about, you know, just affecting your immediate community and practicing peace and sharing love, like, it brings so much more power into your own life again. You don't have to change the whole world, but you can change the world that's immediately around you. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And joining together and just sharing these words of vibration, it makes it stronger. It makes it more powerful. Like, the universe hears it and they're listening and it's grateful for us. So yeah, thank you.
It all starts with us.
It all starts with us.
Thank you, guys. This was a great talk.
Yeah, thanks for joining, Parsa.
Yo, Dala. What's going
Yeah,
on?
I just wanted to like say something at the end. I work a lot and I basically lose the balance sometimes between work and having fun. But this community is just so great to have, and we are all like just entrepreneurs trying to make money from just ideas that we get, and on the other side, all the word is the consumption. All the word is just destruction. So the way we can bring love is just by thinking positively, doing positively, and all saying positive stuff to each other.
Mm-hmm. Supporting the community is definitely a huge part. I know we are, I'm not sure of everyone's story here, but we are a bunch of entrepreneurs and it can be scary trying to live your passion with finances to buy food, and it's because we all support each other and we share each other's stories. And also our work is super valuable. I don't think the world needs more lawyers right now. The world needs more light workers that are teaching meditation, not prescription drugs, and are teaching how to just be happy and live with less, not needing to make more money to have more things, but learn how to live in alignment with Mother Nature, live in alignment with your soul's purpose, so you don't need to be so materialistic and so excessive. You can be happy in the moment and be at peace in the moment. Totally. Totally. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Maybe? They're back there. They're sleeping.
I just have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You guys hear me? Okay. This is an amazing presentation. I think this is like the first step I've taken to connect to the masculine conscious community. And it's something that I've in a very subtle way have been avoiding for a long time. And I've been just involved mostly in the yoga community, mostly with women. So I'm really happy to have been exposed to all of you guys that have this type of experience and have done such deep work from different angles. And so thank you. I have a question for Nicholas, right? So when you're saying that holding space is really, really crucial, and it's like a direct approach to dealing with the circumstances that we're in, how do you build that resilience? Is there like a device, a method, a particular practice that can allow us to withstand that overwhelming sensation that makes us want to run away and maybe do the practice that'll teach us to do that? I think it's I would love to hear your experience on that, if there's something in particular that you do.
Yeah, there's a couple of things to your question. So how do we build the resilience to ongoingly hold space for ourselves and for others? The first thing is, like, let me give an analogy. It's in a way it's a muscle that we strengthen, or it's a way of being that we strengthen every moment that we stay within it, right? Like you go to the gym, there's gonna be some tension that you go through. If you wanna get bigger or if you want your muscles to be stronger, you have to put them through tension, right? It shouldn't be more tension that you can actually handle, because you will injure yourself and then you won't be able to work out for a few weeks, a few months, or sometimes for a longer period of time. It shouldn't be less, you shouldn't feel too comfortable either, because then you might not just grow and expand into that capacity that you want to have. With holding space is the same. It's a daily practice that starts with something as simple as, where do I go? What do I go to, or what do I go towards when I experience a sensation or an emotion that I dislike? That is the first step. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Do I go into my phone? And the distraction, there's all kinds. Some people work, some people party, drink, do drugs. Some people have sex. Some people work out. Some people do a lot of yoga. Some people meditate. The key thing here is that we all have tendencies and habits of how we deal with this tension. And the first step is recognizing that and not going to these things, even if for a few moments. There is something that I was running earlier this year, which maybe it's a deeper process, which is a vision quest. To sum it up, a vision quest was a rite of passage that a lot of tribes had, where when the boy turned a certain age, he was casted out, he was prepared by the shamans of the tribe and the elder, and casted out into nature for 4 days and 4 nights with nothing but water. in a lot of cultures, not even water. So it was dry fasting this whole time. And in that time, he had to sit with himself, and he had to really understand and discover who he is, who he was as a man, and only then he could come back to the tribe. And if not, it was better for him not to come back. Like the tribes were okay with, you know what, he was not ready to be a man in this community, in this tribe. You can do your own version of this, maybe in smaller chunks, but what it forces us to do is, what do I do when I am only by myself, right? How can I hold space by myself if I don't spend any time with myself, right? So dedicating, even if it's just 1 day per month or per week, to being distraction free. Distraction free is also no musical instruments. Journaling, it's okay, better not to, but literally just sitting with yourself. This will start to hone and to sharpen your ability to stay with that, because we have the tendency to reach towards food, towards TV, entertainment, towards friendships, even towards things that are useful. I'm gonna work on my business, I'm gonna work on my body, I'm gonna work on my spirituality. And rarely we make time, like conscious time, to be away from all of these things, be fasting in silence and away from everything and everyone. I think that's maybe a deeper, faster way to gain that resilience. But ultimately, the way forward is true. The uncomfort that you feel when you're trying to hold space for someone, that has the nuggets of gold for your next step. That is where your attention should be placed. Wow, what's coming up? Because eventually you start to realize that what takes resilience is to live so disconnected and so unable to hold space for ourselves and for others. That takes a lot of effort, and that's why most people are tired, are depressed, are anxious, because that takes a lot of effort on the body, a lot of stress, a lot of effort on the emotions that are repressed, that are undealt with, a lot of efforts on our life and relationships, because we are a walking ticking bomb. And you will understand that it actually takes a lot of resilience for us to keep going so disconnected from ourselves and from life. And the moment that you start leaning into that uncomfortable emotion, uncomfortable moment, uncomfortable space, you start to realize that actually to live in that place does not take a lot of effort. It takes decision, commitment, determination, but not effort, because it doesn't wait on you. On the contrary, it frees you from the imaginary weights or the actual weights that you have carried and put on your life. So I invite you to consider that it actually takes a lot of resilience to keep living life in a way where I'm constantly rejecting the present moment. And that when you can relax into the discomfort of just being, you will find that there's a pretty sweet spot where it doesn't take a lot of effort.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Everyone is happy you feel you've had your questions answered. If there anyone else that wants to ask anything, now's the time. Okay. Again, I wanted to thank Nico, Johnny, Angela, Zark is gone, Darren's gone, and Emil. Thank you so much. To close, can I ask us all to just close our eyes one more time, because the most important part of yoga practice is Shavasana, and we're going to try and do that now. So closing your eyes, I want you to take 3 gratitude breaths. And just letting all the information, the vibrations, and words that were spoken in these last 2.5 hours to just solidify within your body. And to just trust that even if you don't remember sentence by sentence, that vibration is doing the work, and it has unlocked a new layer of awareness within you. And to try and be present in your conversations going forward. To really show up as a better whole human. No bias of gender, male or female, masculine or feminine, but to be compassionate to all humans around you in their humanness, that we are all doing the best we can to be tolerant of one another, and to always shine with love, and to keep trying. Start again. Start again. Thank you so much, everyone. It was an absolute thrill. We'll have a Spiritualpreneur coming up in 2021. I'm going to take a break for a little while. And yeah, hopefully the next one will be in person. I hope you find some peace in your practice. And yeah, I'll see you around. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks so much, Sia.
Thank you.
My legs.